Christine, and thank you to the United Nations Foundation and Earth to Marrakesh movement for hosting this. I think it's a great conversation, and genuinely really excited and thrilled to be joined by two passionate advocates for this conversation. So obviously we're here at COP22, a COP focused on action and implementation. The Paris Agreement is now in force, something none of us expected this quickly and rapidly, which is a huge sign of the momentum. But to achieve that, and we're obviously going to need everyone involved, all areas moving forward and that momentum to continue. So as Justine mentioned, we're here today to talk about nature as a powerful solution for that and to offer, different opportunities for us to move forwards quicker. So, Sanjayan, on that, I would love to hear, as a starting point from your perspective at this year's COP, what do we need to do to progress forwards, and actually how can nature be that solution and provide some answers in that big question?
Sure, thank you, and it's great to be here as well. You can just sort of feel the energy when you come out to this space, which is really great. So look, one of the big challenges that we have is that if we are to hold to the 2 degrees or 1.5 degrees Celsius targets that the world agreed to in Paris. It was an amazing moment that when everyone came together at the heels of a disaster that had happened in the city, and there was a sense of unity and a sense of momentum. If we were to try and achieve that, we cannot do it if we don't also protect nature. And the reason is about 30% of the carbon emissions and reduction targets that we need to hit actually exist in nature. So if we continue to destroy forests, continue to destroy soils, continue to clear mangroves and coastlines and seagrass beds, we are not going to get there, no matter what we do. Now, the amazing thing about that is that only about 2% of the funding that's available for climate change today goes to this 30% of the solution. So frankly, if you're looking for a really big play, this is a great place to make that play. It also helps people in lots of ways. It's probably one of the most equitable ways in which we can work on climate, because forests and coastlines protect people, provide them with food, provide them with jobs and opportunities. Restoration of soils helps farmers. So you can get multiple benefits from the same outcome. That's why we and a coalition of other conservation organizations push so hard to make sure nature has a seat at the table amongst the negotiators. We think emission reductions through mechanisms like efficiencies and policy outputs are important, but we also need nature to be part of that solution for people and for wildlife.
No, absolutely, and I know one of the areas of your work is focused around forests and the progress that's been made there. Now, in terms of next steps, talk us through that progress first of all, and how you think we continue to ensure that protection, and what's next for forestry as a whole.
Right, so there are 2 areas that I'm really excited about. I'd say maybe 3. The first is the big overarching sort of idea that you're seeing really played out here in Marrakesh, more so than I saw in Paris. And that is the notion that indigenous people and local communities, those who actually belong to this land and steward this land, are really stepping up and saying these are, our forests, something that we have stewarded over a long time, and we need to be right there taking, action. So you're seeing that. There's been momentum on forest conservation for a long time. Some countries are in the enviable place of actually planting more trees right now than removing them. So we see that trend and we see that momentum. We want to keep it going. The other 2 areas that I'm actually really excited about, one is blue carbon, which is the protection of mangroves, seagrass beds, and coastlines. Right now we know they, acre for acre, have more carbon than any other habitat on Earth. We just don't know quite how to quantify it and then be able to trade it or sell it on the market. And that's something we, Conservation International and others, are trying very hard to do. And the last thing is finding an escape mechanism for airlines. So airlines are coming under increasing scrutiny. They're clearly efficient. You walk through here and you'll see like models of jet engines, and you can see why, right? So if you're flying a plane, you want to be as efficient as possible. But there's only a certain limit you can get to. And so, I think that protecting forests gives airlines a mechanism by which they can offset some of those unavoidable emissions.
No, great, and really interesting to hear about the, all the beds and the different opportunities it offers to reduce that. So Lee, I know you're equally as passionate and have come to this. I'd love to hear about why you're so interested and committed. And I know obviously you've been working with Conservation International around their films, and really just about your journey into getting involved in this conversation.
My understanding of climate change has always been, kind of this mind-boggling global inevitability that was coming our way, this doomsday that was going to hit us. And since I've, become involved with Conservation International, I've met this core of scientists who are breaking down the problem and accumulating data and coming up with really innovative solutions to combat it. I've met policymakers and philanthropists who are demanding action, and I've met some indigenous people who are sharing their wisdom on what to do with it. And suddenly the problem becomes a lot more inspiring and hopeful than it was before. So I guess from where I sit, I really see the value in showing up and learning and finding my own way to participate. I mean, I'm an actor. I don't... I play parts in movies, and to have the opportunity to learn from people like Sanjayan and be useful is a privilege, really.
Well, and we all play our part, and it's a hugely important one. And I think engaging everyone in those conversations and you doing what you're doing is critical. Now, I know you've got a new film coming out, and you're with Momentum for Change tonight at a dinner to talk about that. Do you want to quickly tell everyone what that will be about and what that film will cover and your role in it?
I am voicing Mountain for Conservation International's Nature Speaking campaign. It's this really great thing that I'm excited to be a part of. It's these personifications of elements of nature, and I don't know. Would you like to?
I mean, look, we wanted, as a way of bringing nature to the table, we wanted to create a series of films. They were done by this creative genius, a guy named Lee Clow, who is the guy behind Apple's Think Different campaign. The campaigns that brought the Mac to us and the iPad to us, right? This is the guy who did this. And he said, what happens if the ocean could directly speak to you? Or the soil, or the forest, or Mother Nature, or a mountain? And we've had a series of amazing voices, everyone from Harrison Ford, who's on our board, to Edward Norton, to Julia Roberts, and Kevin Spacey, and Reese Witherspoon. Mountain was really something actually our Chinese audience asked for. It's symbolic for the Chinese, it's aspirational, and he had just come off playing this incredible role in The Hobbit, and the voice, the gravitas that he brings to that voice really seemed to imbue this mountain with its own ability to speak. What's interesting about these campaigns is that you don't see the actors themselves. They really are playing a role. They are playing the mountain or the ocean. I should also say that one of our films for this conference, and we'll make it available online, we had a Moroccan singer and personality voice it home in Arabic, and it's absolutely beautiful. We watched a little bit of it last night. So.
Brilliant. And what's it like to go from in front of the camera, taking on these great roles, like Sanjayan was saying, to voicing over, a total different character and really being able to get to grips with the science and the story behind it?
Well, I mean, it's just that it's a different way to find a character. I mean, you think about a mountain, you think about it sitting there quiet and waking up again. And, I guess our work on it was just kind of a meditation on what that was. And it's... We've been talking a lot about storytelling and how storytelling is so valuable to this conservation work, because storytelling is how we all understand our values together. This idea of us coming around a fireplace, has just been, it's a primitive part of who we are, right? Now the community is global, right? And this problem we face with climate change is global. So those stories we tell each other are more important now than they've ever been, and actually more interesting than they've ever been. So this Nature Speaking campaign is very much a storytelling device. This is, you know, this is the personification of nature is something that is in every culture in the world, you know. So it's, I think about it like when I was in school, I went to Juilliard, and we had a whole semester on mask work. And I think about this character Mountain as kind of like a mask. And I just, you know, do the voice in a way. I don't know.
That's great.
I think it's a great way to think about it, and also, you know, like you say, brings the story to life and tells it. And storytelling is going to be a huge part of this process, because as we've all said and agree, to achieve the Paris Agreement and the vision of the Paris Agreement, everyone needs to be involved. So I know, Sanjayan, you were telling, and here at COP22, obviously, and we're here in the green zone, but, you know, negotiators are literally, you know, yards away from us, you know, deciding and talking about the implementation and the action of this, the Paris Accord. So if you were to say to them, you know, okay, here are the critical points for nature, and obviously as part of this series, engaging everyone, what would those, you know, what would you really want them to think about, tying in all this aspect of drawing in communities, but the action and the opportunities it can deliver if we were to do it?
Sure. So here's what I would say to them, very simply. I would say make sure that the mechanisms for protecting forests and other sources of nature-based carbon are firmly enshrined in not just the agreements, but also the mechanisms by which we can achieve it. So that means funding, that means availability to actually move from an idea to action on the ground. It means making sure that the indigenous voices and local communities, those who live closest to nature, who care most about it, and who will feel the brunt of climate change the hardest, are firmly and fairly equitably represented within the agreements and within the steps you take to move forward. But most importantly, what I would say is not to the negotiators, but I would say that to civil society. Look, governments never lead. Well, let's put it this way, they very rarely lead. It's people who lead. Governments tend to follow. And the road to getting us to a place where we live with a stable climate is going to be long and challenging. It is going to be like climbing a mountain. And if you climb mountains, you know there is not one path up. You know, sometimes you'll get a great surge of momentum, and other times you have to go sideways or even slightly down in order to keep going up. It's very difficult for political actors to make that happen, but civil society has loads of mechanisms to continually zig and zag your way to the goal. I don't think Lee and I think you would probably agree with this too, I don't think we don't think that we will eventually come to grips with the reality of climate change and what we need to do to live in a world with an unstable climate, but also to then mitigate the worst of those things. I think we'll get there. The question is, are we going to get there with a lot of pain and suffering, or are we going to get there a little bit easier? And I would rather take the road that leads to less people suffering.
Absolutely, and I think the organisation I work for, Sustainable Energy for All, and I was really pleased to hear about your point around, you know, an equitable future and you know, providing that, and the access to sustainable energy is still something that's not, unfortunately, being achieved globally. I think 1.1 billion people don't have access to electricity, 2.9 billion don't have access to clean cooking. You know, all elements that for us to achieve, and then obviously we go through different, you know, people in different regions have to go and resort to nature in different ways than they probably want to be able to, you know, to live and to prosper. So there are huge opportunities there.
Absolutely. I mean, look, my grandmother died of emphysema. She died at a very young age. She worked her life in a kitchen that didn't have windows. Didn't have windows. And she would go in there even during the daytime with a lamp. And she had a small hole that she could look through if someone was at the gate. She'll know who's coming. I see my niece, who's 13 years old, who lives in Boston, in a glass house where the kitchen is massive in the center of attention. And she can't believe that people live like that, even today. So this is not a far removed and hypothetical. This is real people who struggle with putting a meal on their table and can only use charcoal or wood stoves in order to cook that food or boil that water, right? So the ability to supply clean energy to the world, powered by the sun, is incredibly important. It not just will help us with a stable climate, which will help all of us, whether Lee's on his farm in New York or whether you're in Africa. But it'll also materially benefit a lot of people.
No, absolutely, and I think the human element, and in 2016, you know, it's crazy. And the human element is forgotten a lot in these conversations, and we can go further and we can go faster. It just requires everybody to move and to move together. But Lee, I know you travel around a lot, and you know, I'm intrigued if there's any, because like we were just talking there are these great stories around the world that through this storytelling that you guys are doing, which I think is so important and such a great opportunity. And I'm really excited to watch and to see you as the mountain Lee. But when you've been traveling, you know, have there been any stories that have stuck out, or, you know, talking to these people, how have you found the reaction in, you know, talking to them about what you do and your work with Conservation International?
I mean, I've been inspired more than anything because we've had a great year. We've been to Kenya, we've been to Iceland. We're talking about going to China. I've been to China before, and I really love it there. I find it to be a really kind of vibrant place that there's no doubt we're in the 21st century in China. And I realize how much we have in common, you know, how much we're actually moving in the same direction, and we're moving there together. Regardless if it's, you know, Iceland, a place that they're completely sustainable with their geothermal, with their cod industry. You know, I learned so much about what they were doing there and found it really, really inspiring. Or when we were in Kenya and we saw community-supported conservation, where the Samburu people have got this elephant sanctuary where they're able to, you know, benefit from keeping the elephants alive and establishing intelligence networks in the bush to figure out the poaching situation. So everyone's coming together. This conference is a big part of that, and that gives me hope, right?
No, great, and it is, and I think again, it's all part of that connected picture by working together that we can continue that hope and that momentum. So obviously and I mean, it sounds a great year. That sounds a great itinerary.
And now we're in Morocco. So
I know.
He's been traveling a lot. And
ending on a high. So what next for Conservation International? How do you want to take this forward? Right. And obviously here it's part of the Earth to Marrakesh Solution Hour. So, and again, it's all back to that idea of action and implementation. You know, what would you love to do as your role, you know, within this? What are you thinking next?
So there's a couple of things I'd love to, that we're going to push forward on. One is, to repeat working on forest conservation and big stores of carbon around the world, and doing that in strong partnership, hand in hand with indigenous communities and local communities. I think it's interesting. There is a third path for conservation that's opening up. I think it was always around. I think we were not ready to hear it. You know, conservation was seen as the province of governments or rich individuals. You buy land and you protect it, or you have a law made to protect land. Now you're seeing 20% of the planet, which is really owned or managed or stewarded in some way by local indigenous communities, providing us with this third path. I think it's very exciting, and I think the world is ready to hear that message. So I'd love to see that continue. We're continuing with Nature Speaking films. We have over 2 billion impressions on these films. Some of them have 60, 70 million views. We want to get those films out. So I want folks to go to naturespeaking.org or conservationinternational.org and make sure you follow it and watch the films and pass it along. We're also getting into virtual reality because it's a great way to immerse an audience in an environment. Lee and I and others are working on a project. It'll be out early next year, where we will be able to take people into the Amazon rainforest with indigenous communities and really see what storing carbon actually looks like from their perspective and also from ours. So that's what's up. Last thing I'd say is you should go to conservation.org right now on Twitter, and it's conservation.org, conservation.org, and we will tweet out how to join a thunderclap. So all of you can be part of our community and send a message to Marrakesh.
Great, and definitely sign me up for that virtual reality element. That sounds really exciting. And I know we can come back to the thunderclap and remind people how to do it, but I think there was a video that your colleagues wanted us to to watch, which is actually a bit of a teaser for the film you've been talking about. So maybe we can watch this now.
I am nature's oldest temple. My glaciers and streams provide the water you drink. My forests, your wood, your clean air. From up here, I see how you've come to treat this world. You used to recharge your body and soul in the calm of my forests. You once climbed my peaks, seeking enlightenment. Now you take what you want and contemplate only your own gain. Open your eyes while there's still time. Because there's one more thing I see clearly. The cliff you're on, and the rocks below.
Wow, and I know that will be, all the information on how everyone can watch it is available on the website. That sounds and looks great. I mean, incredible imagery there. I am kind of jealous of the people that get to go and record all that and, you know, and do all of that.
Well, they're mostly spending time with him in a sound booth.
Yeah, Lee, I feel like you got the the wrong element of the deal there. You should have been in the helicopters recording it. But you did mention, obviously, the Thunderclap, which is available through your Twitter handle, and all the information is there. So I know, unfortunately, we've got to finish this conversation. And thank you so much for joining us. I've genuinely found it fascinating, and I can't wait to go and watch and listen to more of what you're doing. Was there anything you guys wanted to end on in terms of a final thought, or?
I'm grateful to be here. Glad you had time to talk to us today.
And I'll just say to people that, you know, get engaged, get involved. You are the ones who lead, and that is no clearer than now. This is a great moment to be here on the planet and to have actually, this is your chance to be a hero, just simply put.
Perfect. So no easy, task to be a hero and get involved. And thank you again to the United Nations Foundation and the Earth to Marrakesh movement hosting today, and to all colleagues. And yeah, thank you to Sanjayan and to Lee. It's been great to have you here.
Thank you.